Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Movies by McManus podcast, the podcast where we talk about movies, comics, TV, books, whatever type of media you're into, in the context of who created it and what effect it's trying to have on the world. And I haven't said that in a fairly long time because it's been a while, but we're back, and it's a very special TV episode. We haven't really done reality TV on this podcast before, but we are today because we have a very special guest. One of the finalists of Next Level Chef with Gordon Ramsay, and one of my personal best friends since I was very young, Christopher Spinosa.
Thank you for having me, Greg. Very excited to be here.
We're excited to have you. We're excited about the show. We're very happy about it. Let's start with tell our audience, how long have me and you been friends?
Greg and I have been friends since sixth grade.
Since sixth grade.
We used to play in bands together. I mean, we were in Boy Scouts. The dumb stuff we'd get into as kids, and even now it's
It's crazy because, I mean, me and you have been close since forever. We literally did, when we became Eagle Scouts, we did our ceremony together. And it was crazy of, like, I can't even imagine, like, when the show was going on, the amount of people who were, like, reaching out to you and being like, oh, my God, like, I can't believe you're on the show, because, like, I even had people reaching out to me I was getting texts from people that I knew from high school because they all knew that me and you were, like, close friends.
Right.
And they were all just like, is Chris on, like, a TV show and all that? So, like, how crazy has it been, like, while leading up to the show and, like, during the show and while it was going on, just, like, I mean, imagine you're getting, like, were you recognized on the street at all, or?
So the recognition didn't come until, I would say, maybe like halfway through the show. It was very much like people had to watch the show to obviously understand, like, what was going on, who was who in, like, the totem pole. And I think, after a while, it was like leading up to the show, no one knew me, obviously, because we taped it months prior.
I knew you.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
we knew you here.
We knew you.
McManus.
You were a friend of the show.
Yeah,
you were
exactly.
A friend of the show.
The McManus, the most important house in all of Massapequa, the McManus households, is really the one that knew me the best. And but besides that, it was like, you shoot a show like this, and then it was just like, all right, cool. Now be quiet for the next 5 months until it airs. And it aired after the Super Bowl, so it was a big deal. More than any other show slot, like, that was very coveted.
Yeah, it was great. We had all gotten together for the Super Bowl. I'm not, like, the biggest sports person in the world, but me and our friends from high school,
right?
We all got together, and everybody was way more hyped to watch the show than we were for the actual game. I was kind of just, like, waiting for it to get over with because I wanted to watch the first episode.
It's an amazing time slot, like, with that's literally the best probably slot you could pick in television, period.
Yeah.
Is like right?
Right
like,
after,
if you had to think, like, what's the best possible scenario for a new show, you'd have to think immediately after the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I mean, that means Gordon must have really believed in the show then. I'm sure he has a lot to say of when it airs. If he's the one saying, he wants his show to be after the Super Bowl, he has multiple different shows. We were kind of talking about that, before earlier today.
Right. Correct.
So, it's great. So Tucker, obviously the winner, have you spoken to Tucker at all since it ended? Have you been, like, in contact with the rest of the contestants?
Yeah. So we all on the show are still good friends and everything. We still love each other, despite the fact that, there was definitely, certain power dynamics going on.
It's a competition.
It's a competition.
You got to be competitive.
Yeah. You can only be kumbaya so much until the network even just sits there and is like, this isn't going to be fun for people to watch. But that being said, I'm still in touch with Tucker. I text her from time to time. She's obviously, we're at the point where she's obviously started up her mentorship. And the way it works is obviously, you split 4 months for each of the chefs. So like she gets 4 months with Nyesha Arrington, 4 months with Richard Blaze, 4 months with Gordon Ramsay. So
I didn't even realize that that's how they were doing it.
yeah, you get access to all 3 of them.
Has she like told you about like how the mentorship is going or anything like that? Or
We haven't spoken in details. I don't know if that's a sort of like she can't say anything or not. I mean,
that's understandable.
which is possible. I wouldn't expect anything. I wouldn't expect anything less if that is the case.
Right,
But I also know that the winner of the previous season, she was like locked away. She was like unreachable.
She came back at the end.
Yeah.
Did that like
That little
like,
appearance.
guest appearance, yeah.
Yeah, and even then, like, you know, I you know, that obviously that was when we were taping the show, right?
Yeah.
And then when the show finally did air, I started reaching out to like the other contestants from season 1. So like
You were with one of them last night, right?
yeah, so last night I went to the observatory by the World Trade Center Memorial.
Okay.
There's like the restaurant at the top of it, and Ruel is the executive chef there. And I got in contact with him like when season 2 started airing, and him and I have been going like kind of back and forth.
Yeah.
And when I knew I was coming up to visit, I was like, hey, you know, I'm taking my girl out for her birthday. When I fly in, like, how about I come by the restaurant there? Like, is that cool? He's like, absolutely. Made a reservation and everything.
You had mentioned to me before that there's something you refer to as like the Ramsay verse.
Yeah. So
Basically like a network of people from the different Gordon Ramsay shows.
yeah,
basically.
correct. Yeah. So the funniest thing was like, so obviously like, you know, you get this like networking opportunity as well as being on a TV show, because like, you know, you look at Gordon Ramsay specifically, there's many, you know, competition cooking shows. You have like Top Chef. You have like, you know, Chopped. I think there was one.
Is Chopped Gordon Ramsay?
No, that's food. But I'm saying like that's
okay.
Food Network. Top
all right.
Chef is Tom Colicchio, and that, if I'm not mistaken, it's like CBS or another. It's one of the other networks, and like Next Level Chef is on Fox. So basically, because Gordon Ramsay and Fox kind of married together, like now his shows are part of that network, and because of that, you have like Master Chef, Next Level Chef. You have Hell's Kitchen. Like, we don't all talk like actively, but like I've reached into like the other shows and chatted with some of the contestants, and like, you know, I'm trying to do pop-ups or like collaborations with them, and we call it the Ramsay verse because the man has so many freaking shows. It's like, it's like the Marvel. It's like as diverse as the Marvel comics.
Like it's the Marvel,
It's got
you
his
know.
production company.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
You'd see it at the end of each show, like the logo.
Studio Ramsay.
Yeah.
I do think that's like a funny way of just like Gordon Ramsay's like the Stanley of
like
know,
the call of like
of
food
cul-
media.
of food media.
I actually thought that it showed like a really cool side of him. Not that I've paid like super close attention, but like especially in the very beginning, I guess, of like him kind of coming onto the scene, it was like all about like, oh, he's such a hard ass, he's such a bully, like
Sure.
this and that. I felt like you really saw a pretty compassionate side. I don't know what it was obviously like on the inside, but from that was at least my experience. I was like, oh, he's kind of a cool dude. Like he kind of cares about people, like, and like wants them to do well.
You got to remember, I mean, this show is like, so Hell's Kitchen, like the casting people definitely like, they are casting chefs, but they definitely cast chefs that they know are going to clash with Gordon Ramsay's, like, you know, standards or his personality. Like they want to see that like angry, you know, brute. But like with Next Level Chef, it was more of a mentorship show. Or they called them the mentors.
Right.
Like even on production, like they would say the judges, but even like you know, when they were kind of like briefing us on how to kind of go about the questions or like the answers, like they're like, oh, the mentors. Like they'd always use that word over and over, and that was always just like an overlying theme. Like it wasn't supposed to be like this Hell's Kitchen show where you had Gordon Ramsay in your face, you know, just going off on you. It was supposed to be like, we want to see the best out of the contestants.
Did you wish he yelled at you more?
Totally. I mean, you know, like I come from, you know, which is totally a toxic trait of mine. Absolutely. I mean, but like the kitchens that I come from in New York City were all like these high-end, very stress-ridden kitchens, and like I was honestly mentally prepared to receive like the Hell's Kitchen version of him when I got on the show. I was so ready for him to just like go to town on me because maybe he saw me whatever flop something or like put something in the pan too early or whatever.
They all
know?
respected you, man, because
Yeah.
like, you weren't afraid to fucking go for it, even in at the very end. you know.
Well, yeah. I mean, how
With
much
the
did they
tomahawk.
know, like, your resume beforehand?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you were contacted on Instagram, right?
Yeah.
to be on the show.
Yeah, and the funny story behind that was like, I was checking, like, there's the message request folder
Yeah, that you don't.
that you
For
like
people you don't follow.
for people you don't follow,
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
like maybe you want to keep your DMs a little bit more like private and filtered, you know.
Yeah.
So like I'm going through that one day, like my spam folder,
Right.
There's like 40 unchecked message requests. So I'm going through it. I'm like, okay, no. And I land on this one message, and it's like, "Hi, Chris. My name is Victoria from so and so casting agency. We would like to cast you for a competition cooking show. We think you'd be good for. Here's my number. Please give me a call so we could schedule like an interview." And that message was timestamped for January.
Oh,
and
I got the same message. That's
Yeah.
so weird. Oh my god, I could have been
Like,
on
it
the
could have been on the
show.
same show. I was 2 months late to the message. The message was timestamped for
shit.
January, and I saw it in March. So I got
This
back
is
to her.
Obviously, 2022. Yeah.
Yeah. So I got back to her, and I was like, "Hey, sorry, just seeing this. If the opportunity has left, I get it, but please keep me in mind." And she like immediately got back to me and was like, "Oh no, we'd still like to interview you." And
How do you think you got on her radar? And she didn't identify herself as being associated with Ramsay or anything like that?
No,
It was
because
like-
it's a third-party casting agency.
Sure.
It wasn't Fox that was casting.
But you
It was,
obviously got the impression that she was legit.
Totally. Well, here's the thing. Here's the best part, Mike. They didn't even say it was like a Gordon Ramsay competition cooking show. They
Right.
just said it was a competition cooking show. So this could have been
Yeah.
anything. This
Right.
could have been Chopped. This could have been
Right.
Top Chef, whatever. So what happened was, like, I finally got the interview, and I talked to the lady, and like at the end, it was a Zoom call. She like did it for like an hour and a half, recorded it, and at the end of it, she like stops the recording. And she's like, "So this is for a Gordon Ramsay cooking show," and exact response. I was like, "Okay," and
shit.
but she at the end of it was like, in the many years that I've been doing this casting thing, she's like, you are the funniest guy I've had the pleasure of, like,
You definitely came off very funny. on
yeah,
show.
the
That was
one-liners,
great.
it's
It really brought the show together. So I rewatched the entire show recently. Obviously, I watched
Nice.
it live.
Yeah.
Rewatched it. I had there's a question that I was actually wondering of in that first episode. You're not in your kitchen attire yet.
No.
You're in street clothes.
Right.
So did you get there and immediately start cooking?
So we got there, and like, there's still obviously, like, there was a whole process of, like, we all got there, we had to have like an orientation with the production, team and everything, and the first day, I guess, like in very similar fashion to the last season, where they had like everyone do kind of like a tryout first episode. I think what they did is they wanted us to come in street clothes, thinking that we were going to have that same episode. Because not for nothing, like you're casting for a new season of a show, but it's not the first season of the show. Like, obviously there was some like intel that we could like go back, watch the show and see how it was. So we're all thinking like, oh, we're going to do the tryout episode. And then what ends up happening is we get there and they're like, oh, we've already pre-selected your teams. And to that end, when production was like reading us the rules, they're like, by the way, there is an elimination round today, so someone is going home. We're all just like, God damn it.
And Kamalia.
And unfortunately, Kamalia from my team is the first one to go. But yeah, we were all in street clothes because I think they were trying to still keep that idea. They were trying to still keep that facade.
That's wild that's wild that they kind of did throw you in there.
They just tossed us in, man. We basically might as well have just show it off the flight, and just been like, go at it.
When someone is eliminated, like, as much as you can, like, describe what that's like. I mean, like, it seems like the emotions are legit, and like, who's the firefighter dude?
Vinny.
Yeah,
Vinny Nuggets.
when he went, like, I was like, damn, like, it was a grown ass man who was just like, you know what I mean? I'm like, but it makes sense. Like,
had this vice grip on you, right?
it's very, yeah, absolutely. It's very much like watching like someone on a team, like when you get eliminated from the playoffs and they're like, we gave it all we can. Like,
Right.
What is that like being around actually when it happens?
So what happened? So break it down. Like, someone like gets eliminated, and like what happens is like they immediately sequester them away from us. So like there's even a different part of the studio they'll keep them in, and because there's obviously breaks in between each of these shots.
Right.
And like you're sitting, because you remember, guys, I was in elimination twice.
Dude, you.
So like,
yeah.
so that happened to me too.
My heart was going.
There was 2 times where immediately after I was done, like, you know, production people were like, okay, everyone this way. Chris, you go that way. And like, that was, you know, the dark door to a different area of the studio that no one wanted to go because we all knew why. And it was, you know, like you sit there, kind of get ready mentally. They throw
You're talking about before you're going
before you go into the challenge.
Yeah.
You get ready, you go into the challenge, and then you finally go into the challenge, and then what happens is, like, you don't communicate with anyone else from the other teams until that challenge is done. And even then, it's like,
And how long is that? Like, how long are you kind of sitting and dwelling in this?
It's like an hour and a half at least, 2
Yeah.
hours.
Ooh.
Oh, you are marinating in your like stress, like
Yeah.
No, it makes sense because everyone seems so stressed out when they go into elimination.
Because
you're literally
just, like,
sitting there with
you're
your
like, oh my
emotions.
god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, for like 2 hours straight, and like, and especially like, you know, you get onto the stage and you're like, all right, here we go. Like, you go right to the elevator, you know, put your hand on the door, and then like, before you know it, the platform drops, and even though you were sitting there for 2 hours, it feels like it was like 1 minute from when they're like, you're going to elimination to when you finally have to go run to that platform and do it again.
Yeah. So like, and then were you able to speak to the contestants after they were eliminated? Or
No,
not really.
that
No,
was
not
the
at
thing.
all.
For real?
Guys, that's the thing. After they were eliminated, it was like, you know, back to the hotel, and it was, you know, get your stuff
'Cause-
ready. We're putting you on a flight the next day.
Because you had
How
like,
is that possible? They
Because
wouldn't
they
let you
can.
say goodbye and shit?
It was a very, because here's the thing, guys. Like, they don't let you gallivant around.
Yeah.
You know, you have to stay. You're either going to you're either in the hotel, or you're at the studio. There's no way in hell they're letting a bunch of, like, you know, contestants, show people go around town.
So you guys
drink
aren't
or
like
whatever.
going out for drinks and shit?
No, that's the thing. No, it was
Yeah.
it was very regimented. Like, I don't want to say prison rules because we weren't necessarily like in prison. Like, you know, you were at a hotel on a big network's dime. You still had like your laptop, or
Yeah.
books you bring, whatever. So it wasn't like prison, but like in the very strictest form of it, like, yeah, you had to stay in that hotel room for, you know, until it was like, all right, guys, we're going to the studio. And then like they would come and get you from your room and escort you and everything.
that's upsetting because like, there were 2 people on Team Blaze who got eliminated pretty early, but like
Daryl and Kamalia.
the 4 of you, like, it seemed like you had a bond of just like you and Teeny and
Matt
and
Rini.
Matt and Rini.
Yeah.
Like, did you feel like you guys like were a tight team? Like, did you want to come over and like say bye to them?
Totally, absolutely. I mean, here's the thing. Like, obviously, in between all the, you know, despite the fact that it obviously feels like everything was done at once, you guys know that there's pauses in between all the takes. You know, from when we like from when they tell us, like, you know, when Gordon Ramsay's like, your challenge today is to make a next level, like, and right after he's done doing that bit, there's like an hour before we go back on stage. So like, we're all sitting there, like, you know, crushing coffee in the break room, talking about like whatever, you know. So we get to like kind of marinate in our thoughts and like ask each other about each other or whatever. And not to mention, like, you know, there's a lunch break in the middle of the entire shoot day, obviously, where everyone, like, you know, big foldable table in the backstage area and everyone's, you know, munching away on some catered food.
You said your base is 2 days of challenges followed by a day of interviews.
Yeah, so it was like a 6-day work week, broken up into like, you know, 2 days of competition shooting. It was a day of interviews, 2 days of competition shooting, day of interviews, and like Sunday was our day off.
Day of the Lord.
The day of the Lord, obviously. Have to keep the Sabbath, you know.
And then you had to stay in the hotel.
Yeah, stayed in the hotel. Like, we went down, obviously, like,
during your day off.
Yeah, like, we went to like the buffet there, like, you know, like, I kept myself to get myself through all of this because it was mentally tasking. I woke up at like 5:30 every morning and worked out in my room, like,
In your room?
Yeah, I didn't have access. They didn't want anyone. They kept everyone very much like.
Not even a gym. You can't even go to the gym.
The gym that we were at, the place we were at, the gym, like, was supposedly like also like under construction from what I understand.
Okay.
So like whatever. So like,
Do you
once
think maybe they only did that to you because you're
Possibly.
a psychopath?
Possibly,
And
quite
they did,
possibly.
and they were just worried
they're like,
about
we know
you
how to
running
screw
around.
up. We knew how to screw up this guy.
Everyone
we know,
else is like,
we
we're
can't.
hanging out all the time.
yeah.
We
They're
can't
like,
let this
Chris,
guy loose.
They're like, Chris, they've been feeding you weird bottles of water that they were putting some powder stuff in there for you, bud. So I don't know. But anywho, but like, I got up every morning at like 5:30, worked out, Then like went downstairs and got breakfast, and I kept breakfast very lean. It was like, just like a fried egg, some fruit, and like if I was feeling sassy, like some yogurt and some bacon.
If you were feeling sassy.
If I was feeling sassy. But then basically, on that Sunday that we were off, I went down to the freaking buffet and I got like waffles, like the whole 9 yards. I like pigged out on that day.
What are the hours when you're actually shooting?
So like by the time we got to the studio, depending on the day, it was anywhere between like 8 or 9 a.m. Because sometimes they'd have us come earlier and sometimes they'd have us come later, depending on like what their shooting schedule was, I guess. But by the time we were done and back at the hotel, it was like 9 o'clock at night. So like, 10 hours, 12 hours. Yeah, like that was the thing. Like as much as I would have loved to like, especially me working in like the restaurant industry, like of course I would love to go out and like, have some drinks to unwind. But honestly, I was like, I want to go to bed.
Yeah, you gotta be shut.
Yeah. And like, you'd order like some takeout, the food would come, you'd munch away, and then like honestly at that point, like you just like, it was like a food coma. I just passed the hell out.
Yeah.
And it was great. As far as like, the fact that I was easily able to pass out, but like to rinse and repeat it like, every day after a while. The Sunday day off was nice because I would just like watch Netflix. My way of like kind of like because we didn't have access to like a kitchen for us to practice recipes, right? So what I did was like I'd go on my computer and open up like the Post-it note like app and just like type out ideas. I'd start like throwing out ingredients because like what?
So you were like prepping. You were basically prepping the entire time.
Yeah, and like how do you prep a platform grab, right? Like it's it's all randomizations.
You can't. Yeah.
You really can't. Like
is there anything you wish you were able to cook when you were on there that you didn't get a chance to because you either like couldn't grab it or it just wasn't available to you?
Lobster I wish I cooked at some points, and scallops. Those are two things that I never cooked on the show. And
you were a seafood. You used to work at the seafood restaurant in Manhattan.
I did the John Dory Oyster Bar, which was an all seafood restaurant, and like half of our menu was always rotating, which was great. Like, and like the chef there, she was a very intense person, but damn if she wasn't talented and didn't know how to, like every time the purveyor had different seafood, she knew what to do with everything. And not just as simple as like sear it, put some sides. She'd like take like cobia and like do this weird like crispy crackling and make a tartare out of it. It was like the girl like was on a totally different level.
So what was the difference like if you like having that experience? Obviously part of the charm of the show is like you have the professionals, you have the home cooks, you have the social media cooks. Like what type of difference did you see between people where it was like, was it so apparent? Or I mean, I don't know shit about the, even having our family in sort of the food industry, like I still don't know too much about it, but like was that obvious, or it seemed like everyone kind of rose to the occasion a little bit?
Yeah,
especially towards the end.
Because you got to think about it like this way, Mike. Like, so the platform was the great equalizer. Like, no matter how good you were, that platform was what separated. It was what it did was it like reverted you back to like your physical and mental instincts. It didn't matter. Creativity wise, yes, but even just as simple as like getting to that platform and then like mentally being there to like grab, to like see, because you have 30 seconds, right? Which feels like 3. And you're looking at the stuff and like you have to think like your brain is like basil, your brain is obviously registering what's in front of you, but then you think about the stuff that you don't recognize. And then in that moment, as you're seeing the stuff, like at least with me, it was like, what have I cooked with that before? What have I added with that? Okay, cool, bet, I'll grab that. And it was like, oh, cool, maybe some wine will go with that too. Get some herbs and aromatics. What's our protein? And like, it's like a building. It's literally like you're building like a sandcastle with the thoughts.
Are you seeing the platform, and as you're seeing the ingredients, you're like, here's what I'm making? Or are you just like, I like that, I like that, I like that, and then when you have it, go, now what do I do with it?
It starts, for me personally, it was the first 3 grabs decided the whole dish immediately. It was like, cool. Seafood, and obviously the challenge, for sure. Whatever the theme of the challenge was.
That's the direction.
Right, that's the direction, right? But then after that, it was like, okay, 1, 2, 3. And 3, in the first 3 grabs, I was like, already my brain was like, you better have hatched out what it is that you're doing. Like in the finale, the first cook that I did was with the duck breast. I grabbed duck, and it was like soy, and then like potatoes, and automatically that was like the 3 main ideas of the dish, and then everything else was like, what do I know works, or what have I cooked with before that like could marry into this very easily. And the thing was, to double back on your question of like, between like the social media chefs, home chefs, and the professionals, at least for me, the way I knew I shined through, or at least had an edge over everyone, because I worked in so many different restaurants. Like I bounced around to places for the 7 years I was in Manhattan. It was like all different places. Resume-wise, was that smart? Probably not, but you know what happened at the end of the day? I had a freaking Rolodex.
Yeah, you were able to do it.
100%.
And you really were like one of the few contestants, I would say, where you knew how to do everything.
Yeah.
Where a lot of them, it was apparent that they had specialties. They were really good at one thing, but you were really one of the few chefs where I would say like you really like were an expert on every different type.
Yeah, and it came from me bouncing around and doing all of that. And so at the end of the day, you know, the platform grab got dicey for me from time to time still, but because my ingredient recognition was so like honed in, I knew how to use things that people weren't even grabbing on off of the platform.
And you were used to stress in Manhattan.
The stress part was the big part.
Yeah.
People were
because you were fucking cool as a cucumber, man.
The whole time.
Yeah.
Even when Blaze, I remember when he went up to me, he's like, okay, mole takes 3 days to make. And like, that didn't even like put a dent in me. I was just like, all right, cool. Got it. It's just like.
Which dish that you cooked did you think was your best one?
The best dish that I cooked, I think, was besides the tart, because that was baked and that's like a dessert, and that was I think that was like almost like it was like the moon and stars aligning perfectly that episode.
That one specifically, that challenge specifically was the one that really like showed like, oh yeah, Chris is someone who knows how to do everything, because like it was very apparent that some of the contestants who were great cooks didn't know how to bake.
Right, and I've had to do that in restaurants. I've had to be like a baker, at least on a few occasions. But besides that dish, I think my lamb and shrimp, the surf and turf dish that I did, was awesome. Because that dish, just besides from the fact that I had Naisha Arrington like tasting it, and she was like, the shrimp goes really well with the lamb. Like it was almost like a newfound surf and turf combo that they found. And like once I had those comments from them, I was just like score.
How well did you get to know the mentors? You know, like obviously, I mean, if you're being sequestered and you're not spending a whole great deal of time with the contestants, it's probably more so with the mentors. But like,
sure.
What you know, as much as you can say, obviously, what can you share about each of them individually, you know, how they are as people?
Sure. So, So, again, correct. Like, we didn't really get much time with them at all. I mean, really, it was any of the time that we had with them was on the set. But, like, there obviously was also a lot of stuff that didn't make it to air, you know, because that's just the way it is. So, like, despite that, like, that being, like, they still kept, like, engaging with us as much as they could on the set. And like even like Richard Blaze, like he would go up to me, you know, and just like really like there was what he would say for the camera, right? That you knew that he was, and then after that he was done, and you knew the camera was going to pan to someone else, and then he'd be like, "But really, you feel good, right? Like you got like you know, you feel confident with this?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "You got any questions?" It's like these quick.
He'd hit you like as a person.
Yeah,
yeah.
like quick few second interactions, but yeah, like even like the. Even like, what was it, like the finale, like when I had like the moment with him in the kitchen, like even he went up to me, he's just like, dude, he's like, you made it. Like you really like made it really far. Like from like where I came from, like he acknowledged that.
That's cool.
Sadly, I felt that didn't really make it to air and it wasn't really shown, but you know.
I thought it was very clear that Richard Blaze at least like clearly liked you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You were clearly like one of his favorites.
Yeah, I think.
How were you happy about being on his team? Like, did you want to be on Gordon Ramsay's team, or like were you happy being with Blaze?
I was happy with Blaze. I think everyone under the sun really kind of wanted Gordon Ramsay because obviously he's Gordon Ramsay.
Yeah,
and like,
of course.
And Naisha Arrington, I think like season 1, like though I really enjoyed it, she was more of a hard ass that season, and
she was probably the hardest of them, maybe.
Yeah. I'd say, yeah. And like this season, she was like a little bit more mentor-like, you know. Mm-hmm. And even she, like the first elimination round that I had, like that was the first time that she was like, you know, she got to see me cooking outside of, you know, the teams in the kitchens or whatever. And she even like gave me this look at the end of it that was just like, my dude.
Oh
Just
yeah.
like
No.
she.
Well, that was the thing when you towards the end, everyone was like, "Man, this guy's really going for it."
Yeah.
And she was definitely. I feel like they all were pretty vocal about that at times, or even if they weren't necessarily vocal, like you could kind of see it in their expressions.
For sure.
Which was really cool.
Well, it's just you were clearly taking risk the entire time, and that was the entire thing. And you did kind of get a reputation of being like a psychopath in the thing because you were pulling things together. And on Twitter and on the internet, they've basically decided that you were the villain of the show.
Yeah.
Before we get into that, because I have a lot of questions. I don't want to get off the.
No.
What did you learn about, if anything, about Gordon himself?
So the guy is a regular dude. Like, he is down to earth when the cameras are off. He's wisecracking just like the three of us. Like, he really is. Cool. He is still like, he is a line cook in a like celebrity chef's body. Is what I think it is, because like the man has all these shows, so much success. He doesn't have to cook really like at all. The man is so set up now that he doesn't have to.
Yeah, he's obviously is a chef, but he's a television producer.
Right.
That's what it was.
And he
boss.
Right. And he very much could walk away from kitchens altogether and just be personality, and he would still be fine. But he will go out of his way to still like go into the kitchen, get his hands on things, do stuff, because like he truly does love cooking. He really has like a sincere passion for it. I say this all the time, and I stand by it. He is the Michael Jordan, specifically the Michael Jordan of the culinary industry. He's put so much time on the court. He's untouchable.
He's the Michael Jordan, and he's also the Stan Lee, and
Yeah.
he's also a bunch of other things.
Bourdain is like, oh man, I don't know, Dennis Rodman.
Who would win in
Dennis Rodman?
Who would win in a cook? Wait, does Bourdain cook or does he just?
He does,
No.
but
Does he?
I mean,
I've never watched Parts Unknown. I don't know.
Okay,
I know.
no,
I know he goes.
No, he
places.
came up. He didn't towards the end of his life, but he came up, of course, as a cook.
Oh,
yeah.
I guess I did.
His whole effect, like Gordon Ramsay and Bourdain have two different effects in the industry for cooks. Like Bourdain was think of it like the blue collar man's champion. Like, he was the guy that like was like, and so did Gordon Ramsay. But I think what happened was Gordon Ramsay soared into like real television personality sort of like environments, whereas like Bourdain was still very gritty. He was still very like rugged. The guy still went out into places in the middle of fucking nowhere and like went to someone in like a hut and like greeted them and like tasted their food and like told their story. And that was his kind of like shtick, Whereas Ramsay, his shtick, to his rise to the occasion, was like the angry Scotsman in the kitchen that tells you that you're an idiot sandwich, like that. You know what I mean? Like,
that's funny, because that is almost like an American versus like an English way of like looking at things.
Absolutely.
Kinda.
Totally. And and listen, they're both. All of us in the industry still respected both of them, but Bourdain was almost like everyone's uncle when you think about it. Like when he died, like my chef pulled us downstairs from the service that we were doing, and he had like
we
were at work in the middle of service. This was at the spot in Brooklyn that I was working at, Golda.
Yeah.
And he pulled us down there and had like shots of vodka poured out in like the little deli containers, and he's like, "I just want to say something because we lost a great man today, who really like touched all of our hearts." And like we all like took a quick shot, and he was like, "All right, well, let's get back to service." And like the ticket machine was still, like going crazy.
It's surprising and it's not surprising of just like how much food affects people.
Yeah.
I've said this before, because obviously like this podcast is mostly about movies, but I've
Sure.
said before on the show of just like I love when they show food in movies or they use food to express something in movies.
Absolutely.
Like I always like you characterize somebody by what they eat, how they eat it.
Right.
You've seen Pulp Fiction. Everybody's
course.
seen Pulp Fiction. How do they show that Samuel L. Jackson's character is powerful? Samuel L. Jackson takes a hamburger,
From someone
takes
else.
someone else's hamburger, bites it in front of him,
Yeah.
gives it back to him, and then goes, as adding insult to injury, goes, "That was a tasty burger."
Yeah.
Using food. Martin Scorsese is famous for this. Martin Scorsese uses food to, bring people together.
Sure.
But it's just,
but also even like
that's something like in the television and in the movie world of just like people in real life are eating, and people in real life do use their food to express themselves, and it's always great to see like a director or a filmmaker using that in their movies, because
Absolutely.
food is a form of expression, and it doesn't surprise me at all that like these celebrity chefs really like mean a lot to people. The
I'll never
food you
forget
make means something to someone.
When
Yeah.
Bourdain died, you texted me. I was
Yeah.
driving. I was working for a catering company at the time, and I literally pulled, the car over, and I got out
Had
of
a
my
moment.
car. Yeah, absolutely. I got emotional, man, because he meant a lot to me. I had like one interaction with him once, not in person, but it was
Yeah.
fucking, one of the. I was young when it happened, and it's forever gonna be like one of the coolest things that I was ever a part of, just because I'm like, damn, that's fucking Anthony Bourdain. Yeah, Greg was mentioning. I'm sure you're aware of it. I know you interacted at least one time because I saw something you posted and it was fucking hysterical. But the people making comments on social media, how do you deal with that? Does it bother you? Is it funny? Do you when did you notice?
So I'm glad you guys brought this up, because this really took a lot of like, sort of like decision making and self-reflecting on my end, because here's this opportunity that I'm in, and we'll see if I end up doing TV again or not, because I'd like to, but time will tell if that will happen or not.
I think it's a travesty if you don't.
I agree. I absolutely agree, because like, sure, my antics on the show were great, but I would almost argue the antics that I did off the show with some of these people were some of the funnier moments too. Because
do you have an agent or a manager now?
I'm in the process of trying to find one.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
You should talk to we could talk off air, but
yeah,
man.
We'll
you 100% could be like, CAA, United Talent,
sure,
like something along those lines.
Yeah, and I think.
I mean, dude, listen, you're a phenomenal chef. Everybody knows that. We knew that before you went in, and but let's be honest, like taking nothing away from the cooking side, like you were a fucking personality on that show.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
They would have been completely moronic to take you off of that, and
for whatever reason.
If they took you off for like the 3 episodes in, I feel like there's no way in hell they were gonna do that.
No, right? It's like production was even like.
Did they any kind of comments about that? Like, were they like, yeah, man, like,
yeah, like,
or was it just something you felt?
No. This was. I got comments from the production staff. Like, even when I did like the confessionals, like the interviews, like I had the interviewer and the camera guy laughing hysterically.
When you're in the basement kitchen and like nothing is really working, and you say that line of
I don't trust any single piece of equipment in this kitchen.
The only piece of equipment. Yeah, exactly. I was laughing so hard.
Yeah, it was. When I said that, the interviewer like took off her headphones and died of laughter, and the camera guy, who like you guys know is like sitting there silent usually, that dude started dying of laughter, and that was it. They were like, we have to retake that. They're like, we need to retake that.
So there were some things that you had to retake
because I had him laughing so hard.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, you always love to see that.
Yeah.
I love the one near the end. You said something of you can't out Godzilla.
Yeah, you can't out Godzilla. And like when someone was trying to talk shit to like me on like one of my on Instagram, like on one of my photos, like one of my fans freaking.
Oh really?
Used that, great. Smacked him with that line right across
Came
the
in
face.
with the you can't. Oh god, that's a good thing about like catchphrases because you're giving your fans ammunition to use against.
It's like
you're trying to out Godzilla right now. Get the fuck out of here.
It was perfect. The dude literally, it was like he just cocked the hammer. It was just like bang. It's Perfect. Yeah,
you would interact with these people, like you would see the comments. And all
yeah,
that.
so like I made a point. So like I created a Twitter shortly after leaving the show. Right, I started up a TikTok, Twitter. I advanced. They told me when I left, they're like, get your socials up.
Right.
And I was like, all right, cool. So as I did that, like obviously the show started airing, and they were telling us like, by the way, Twitter is usually where it all goes down as far as like the live.
I was checking after every episode.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
checking
exactly.
The next level chef.
This is
hashtag
refreshing the
after
whole
every
time.
episode. Yeah.
So my favorite thing to do, because like some of my contestants would be like, yo, they're like, they are saying some shit about you. Like, and like some of them would like screenshot and send it to me. So after the first 2 episodes, I was like, bet I'm gonna enter the Coliseum, aka Twitter, like the day after the show airs, so I can just see and go through whatever happens. And like I will specifically go after the people that are like, man, if they say anything to the effect of like, I wish this guy got eliminated because of this, and I would just like send them like a GIF or some dumbass remark that's
Still here, bitch.
still here, motherfucker. Like you can't kill me, I'm a cockroach. Like
Can't out Godzilla.
I can't out Godzilla. And like it was just funny because like some of these people were consistently like
Consistent haters.
consistent
Yeah.
haters, and
You
like
had haters.
those
You had
people
haters.
I would go out of my way to just like keep messaging them like, you rang, like, you know, like I'm like, who summoned me, like and then like then what happened was, so that was Twitter, and then
That's great.
Matt, the barbecue guy, like was at one point just like, yo, he's like, you should definitely check Reddit, and I was like, oh, okay. And then
No,
and then
Reddit-
Oh,
friend-
Reddit is like Reddit's the toilet bowl of the
yeah,
internet, my
yeah.
guy.
Like Twitter, I came in with like a baseball bat. Reddit, I had to go in with like a shotgun. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
straight
it was bad. Like, and then like
Fuck people on Reddit, man.
no, I know, but you know what? Because I like to challenge myself and I like to put myself through abuse. Clearly, considering the fact that I went on the show and am in the business that I am, our friend Frank was like, yo, he's like, there is a whole thread on Reddit dedicated to just you, and it is just hate. It's like the guy's got so much grease
Wait,
in his
hold
hair.
on. I'm
like,
sorry. You had an entire Twitter thread, like in
A Reddit thread. R next level chef / chef Chris, and it is still there to this day. Yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
might have to check
No,
that out.
Reddit. No, people on Reddit are fucking losers.
Yeah.
No, honestly, I was googling my company the other day for a reason that, you know, like SEO shit, just to check
Sure.
on shit.
Yeah.
And I found this Reddit thread, and it was like, oh, has anyone ever worked with 19th and 7th is the name of my company?
Mm-hmm.
And some guy just put like, oh, yeah, they're a bunch of scam artists. They asked me for $40,000 up front. Are you out of your mind?
What the hell?
I've never even
No.
remotely. First of all, we don't operate like that. Like,
Sure.
oh, give me fucking 40,000.
Yeah.
Like, are you crazy?
Yeah,
and
that's
I
erroneous.
fucking found the guy on Instagram
Get
like
the
a fucking creep moron, and I sent him a message, not even like revealing that I found it, and I was just like, hey man, you know, just
Ask him
hoping
to
check.
pay the invoice.
Because it was someone I had spoken to like 2 years ago in a meeting.
Yeah.
And I was gonna fucking catch him and just be like, hey motherfucker, like I found our
Yeah.
history of
Yeah.
our transactions. Explain to me where the fuck I asked you for
40,000.
40,000 up front.
Oh my
but you're fucking
God.
online with your fucking Twitter fingers, fucking be like, yo, I will fucking fight
Yeah.
you, bro. Like,
Trying to that's slander. That's straight
no,
up slander at that point.
exactly.
I mean,
so fuck people on Reddit.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
not
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
fight anyone. Calm down. They're gonna clip this and put it on.
oh, they're
It's
so gonna be like, I told you that guy was an animal.
Well, yeah, it's also great
That's
because you
fucked up. You're fucking with
obviously.
my livelihood.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, you know, like you said, it's the toilet bowl.
Yeah, well, it's great because like obviously you knew you were gonna be a finalist, so seeing people say, "I hope this guy gets eliminated every week," knowing being
I'm
like,
just like, they don't know. They don't
every
know.
episode, motherfucker.
So what do they tell you about what you can say, what you can't say? Obviously spoilers, but like, is it like, I mean, maybe you can't even reveal it now, but is it very restrictive what they put on you?
I mean, I wouldn't call it restrictive. It's a very simple kind of rule of thumb. It's just like you can't reveal anything until it airs.
Sure.
Which pretty
Anything that's
much.
not public.
Yeah, which makes sense. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, that's almost and let's be honest, that's not a hard that's not hard to understand.
Yeah.
No, you're
That's
kind
like-
of an asshole if you.
Yeah,
violate
what's so like that shouldn't that should sink in pretty.
Tweeted that Tucker won during the first episode.
Yeah, exactly right. Just like it just spoiled everything. But like it was just like you can't like that's pretty easy to follow. As far as that goes, like the only thing that we couldn't reveal was like where we where we couldn't reveal like much about sort of like our day to day. Like at the time, it was long after the show ended that we could kind of talk about that sort of stuff. There are some things that we can't talk about, but it's not as restrictive as you would think. Yeah. The NDA that I signed was pretty much the most restrictive. Obviously, when I first got back from shooting the show, because it was like 5 months from when we finished shooting to when the Super Bowl aired, and it was like do not say a goddamn word, because it was like you wouldn't just get sued for like breaching the amount of money that the show itself like was worth. It was like for all the ads that they paid for.
Sure.
And like that in and of itself, between the Super Bowl slot, right, between the Super Bowl slot, how coveted that is, and all the ads that Fox paid for, because they were also broadcasting the Super Bowl.
Oh no, dude! I remember they were in the booth, the Fox booth after the Super Bowl. Who won the Chiefs won again.
Yeah.
And they're the football analysts are talking about the show. I'm like, damn.
Yeah, no,
this is some legit ass shit.
You know that they just like paid the ever loving crap out of it for that.
Yeah.
So it was the most restrictive part of it was really just like when I got back at the end of shooting the show, up and until when the first episode aired. Yeah. Past that, like the social media team sent us the assets for us to use. Or they sent us like a plethora of assets. So we had our kind of like the dealer's choice of like how you want to go about posting. Okay. When there wasn't really like a posting schedule, or like you had to put this in the description. It was just the worst thing. The only thing we got was like just put hashtag next level chef. Here's the photos and videos. Go crazy. The gifs of like all the stuff that we would do and all the catchphrases, you just couldn't post that until it obviously aired.
Right.
That was really it.
So, a lot of those gifts they sent you.
Yeah, they sent us that. And because it's the good and bad news of that is like we all also knew, like everyone is like, oh, like don't you know what's gonna happen? And I was like, I mean, yeah, but I don't know how they edited it. I don't know what made it to air and what didn't. So for me, it was like, okay, I need to like I'm like, all right, but like, what if like I want to use a certain part that I know didn't make it to air? Didn't matter. Whatever they sent us, we could only use what was in that sort of material pool, if you will.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, that's all pretty basic. So.
Yeah, I imagine that's probably pretty like standard operating procedure with like most of these network shows.
Did you see any of this like in your future? I sound like a guidance counselor. No, but like when you're in the thick of it with your career, like did you have like personality, TV, like was that something you were interested in, or was it totally out of left field and now you're interested because of the experience? I always I always thought that any chef like would jump at the chance to do reality TV. And then when I was working in New York City, like there was a few chefs I worked with that did Chopped and what have you. Okay. And I think what I actually gathered was there's actually a good amount of these people that really don't want anything to do with that, and they just simply are very focused on the food, which I get, because like certainly some of the most talented chefs out there that even run some of the best restaurants in New York City, they're not exactly the most sociable people. They're not exactly like TV friendly, whatever you want to call it. But the good news for me was like I always had it in my mind, but I wasn't married to the idea. I was okay with going about the rest of my career without doing TV, if that was going to be the case. And then for like this opportunity to kind of quite literally fall into for this opportunity to fall right into my lap the way it did was like nuts, and I felt like it was like the world talking to me in a way. So
now I definitely want to go into it, because like doing a show, make no mistake, like I'm a D-list celebrity at best as far as like notoriety goes. Like I'm no Brad Pitt obviously from this show, and I'm very well aware of that. And I think the good news is like that's the whole shtick with this show. It's like the show is a launch pad. It is not this isn't like your golden ticket. It's like this is your foot in the door of like,
I mean,
okay,
you just turned 30, man. You're a young dude.
Yeah.
It's just the beginning.
it's just the beginning. There's so much, but I guess to that point, like there's still much work to be done, as they say. Like there's a lot for me that I have to do. Cause like take Richard Blaze and Naisha Arrington, like they were on all of these cooking shows. If you look at their rap sheet, they were on so many cooking shows. Richard Blaze hosted a few cooking shows before they got this gig as judges on a Gordon Ramsay cooking show. And make no mistake, like Gordon Ramsay is the one that's like put the two of them on at this point.
100%.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they are not as well known as he is.
Did the two of them, Chef Arrington and Chef Blaze, they did competition?
They did
shows back in the day?
they did a few competition shows. Chef Richard Blaze is from Long Island, by the way. That's the fun.
What?
So I looked up his profile.
Oh, he's my boy now.
Yeah,
Hold on.
yeah,
I
so
didn't even realize
this
that.
this is guys. This is full circle, by the way. From us being
He's got
best
some
friends.
olive oil on him?
He's got a
Yeah,
lot
he's
of
got
olive oil. He's got a little bit of.
Where
Please, I
in
see.
Long Island is she from?
So
I
again,
didn't even know that.
So again, this is full circle, by the way.
I should have known.
This
that.
is full circle for like us, you know, knowing you from knowing
He's from
you.
Massapequa.
I wish it was that close, but no, like from knowing you for as long as I do, especially you as well, and then like here I am, you know, us doing this podcast segment here. Like he's from Uniondale.
Oh my God.
He's from freaking Uniondale. This guy.
That is
You go in
really
his profile. you
I
go in
mean,
his.
Do you think that's why he picked you to be on a team? He
Part
not
of me-
another Long Island yet?
Part of me must have been like, okay, cool. He was definitely going through. And he's like, all right, his food's awesome. Like he's got professional, you know, experience. And there has been a little part where I was like, oh my God, I'm like hometown Massapequa Park, and he's just like, if I don't pick this guy, I feel like he just could have had this moment where he was like, I'd be doing a disservice to myself if I didn't pick another Long Islander to come out on here,
Yeah.
like on my team.
Of
Yeah,
course.
he's from Uniondale, guys. That's the funniest part about it. Like I was like, what?
yeah, he doesn't sound like
No.
he's from here.
Yeah.
No, but-
yeah, he didn't really like have an accent.
Not at all.
No.
He didn't seem, you know,
Well,
a bombast.
he lives out in San Diego now. Like that's where he's he like lives out in San Diego now, but he has like he apparently got a bit of a start in Atlanta and then like started doing cookbooks in restaurants. So he's got like one in Orlando, Florida, a bunch in San Diego, you opened one in the Keys. Like he's blowing up now from the show. And like but even prior to all of that, like he was doing competition cooking shows. He was making all these other appearances prior to this show. And like I guess to the point to my point, it's like, yeah, doing this show is great, but like looking at their like sort of paths to like becoming judges on this show, there's a lot of other like appearances and stuff that I need to do before I could even get the proverbial, you know, Chef Spinosa show or whatever.
I mean, a part of that is obviously in your hands now with social
Absolutely.
media. Like, and you've been posting on a very consistent basis, like the, you know, just the home, like, hey, here's a recipe, you know,
Yeah.
I'm doing this today. Like,
Yeah.
how much work is that? Obviously, like, to be consistent with it, it's like, all right, I'm going to the grocery store. Like, here's like, I'm just picking this today. Like, I'm shooting it. Like, what's your schedule with the stuff that your own original content?
You know, my job now is that of a private chef. So like down in South Florida, especially as you see where I live, it's like rich people central down there. There's so many people there that like will pay.
In West Palm Beach.
In West Palm Beach specifically, there's people that will pay for a chef to cook for them, no problem. And you got varying degrees of that. You have like people that want meal prep, all the way up to people that are doing like a full-on like engagement party, and you know they need a chef for like 30 to 40 people. And you know, like some of the clients that I get, you know, depending on what it is they want me to cook for them, especially the meal prep clients, I'll have like some leftovers from the food that I purchase. So a lot of it is me taking what I already purchased for them and just like repurposing, like, all right, cool, what can I do with this? Okay, and then I still will go out and purchase more stuff to supplement it. Like if the scraps, if I'm going to make like a dumpling sort of situation, like yeah, I'll go get like wonton wrappers or spring roll wraps, depending on what I'm doing. But then in other scenarios, it's also like, okay, well, what time of year is it? Is there a holiday coming up? Like, what have I done already? Or what's something that's like, you know, big fish like Frank Sinatra, New York, fireworks? Or should I do something that's more laid back, very simple, easy for the home people to kind of dive into?
Cool.
That's kind of how I think about it. It's like, and because I have a skill set that encompasses a lot, I can go like more of the simple, like, okay, well, we could just make some simple, like a chicken and rice dish, but put it into seasonings that people haven't used before. Or I could be like, all right, guys, we're doing a freaking tart today, and I'm going to teach you how to make the dough, do the custard, like the whole 9 yards.
How much has your business been affected by like being on the show, like your personal chef business? Have you been getting like a lot more clients? Have clients come out specifically because they saw you on the show?
I haven't had anyone specifically because of the show. It's really more so like prior to getting on the show, like a year almost to the day when the show aired, I was like putting a lot of work and time in with like these like really well connected like aristocrats of the area that I kind of met. And
Florida oligarchs.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly, pretty much. And like, but they took a liking to me because they're like,
this
here's
one
this
guy Epstein.
Yeah, like I don't know, he had this island or whatever. Like
he had a bunch of friends.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Slipped something in my drink. You know, it was. I felt a little fuzzy afterwards. I was missing a kidney after that, but you know, who knows where that went. Anywho, but it was basically like I was putting a lot of work in with these guys. Like, you know, we'd go out. We would like they'd introduce me to their friends who'd like, you know, hire me for dinner from time to time. But the thing was that, you know, I was trying to get into that like upper echelon of society there, because that's, as a private chef, that's where the money is.
100%.
That's where you make most of that. So like
No,
now, right? And now one of my clients is like, I have an MLB player. I have another client.
I knew that, but I didn't know if we could bring that up.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I could bring that up.
I won't say who. I won't say who. But one of my clients, I have a major league athlete as one client. I have another guy who's like a very well connected individual to another very well known athlete. Yeah, exactly. Godfather sense there. But freaking. But then, like, besides that, like, you know, it's also like the summertime in Florida now, because it's, you know, and that's kind of like our winter season. It's the slow season. But the good news is the people that I've hot as
people
hell,
don't want to go down there. I mean, when it's too hot.
Yeah. And it does get, it's like even right now it's like 92 degrees and 100% humidity down there. So it's not everyone, like in the middle of the day from like 12 to 3, like you don't want to be outside.
What's the gym routine? I know you're a big gym guy.
I get up at like 6:30. I get up at like 5:45 to get to the gym by a little after 6.
We're talking like this is every day?
This is pretty much every day. I give myself 2 days where like instead of going in the morning, I'll go later in the day because maybe I have scheduling stuff with clients.
Yeah.
Because some clients I'm doing like early morning drop-offs for like meal prep.
Okay.
And like I have to almost like really start the day at that hour. And I'm not going to get up really that much earlier just to hit the gym when I know that I'll be available later in the day. I could just go
I know exactly. I'm kind of toying with my routine with that now too, because sometimes like if I have like a really early meeting, it's like, all right, I gotta wake up at fucking 4:45.
Yeah,
like,
you're not Jocko. You're not Jocko.
Like,
you know, like
I was doing 5:15 for a while, like thinking I'm a tough guy. I'm like, fuck this shit, because like by like 4 in the afternoon, I'm like fucking useless. And I'm like, I can't do this. So anyway, you're getting up at like 5:45.
I get up at like 5:45 to get to the gym by a little after 6, and I try to keep that consistently at least during the weekday, and then on the weekends, because I go to like one of those F45 gyms, so it's a lot of classes. So what it is like it's one of Mark Wahlberg's gyms. Like it's a brand that he's established, and what it is they call it functional training. But it's basically like a hybrid of like CrossFit and weight training. And I say a hybrid because like there's a lot of stuff that I don't really like about CrossFit, where it's like the kip and pull up, which like doesn't make any sense to me. Like it's not actually a pull up. It's like you're using your momentum.
CrossFit is stupid.
There's parts to it that I really don't agree with. There are applications of it that work, but I think what happens is like Mark Wahlberg started this gym brand and kind of created functional training, because it was like taking the good parts of CrossFit and then taking a lot of the good parts of usual weight training and being like, we're going to do that, but we're also going to add a little bit more cardio into it. Like we really want people to be able to be like, active, like running, a lot of aerobics and body weight movements. And so like that stuff in the early morning is great. And then like later in the afternoon, if I want to go lifting again, that's when I'll go like and do more.
Doing 2-a-days?
I try to do 2-a-days just because, and it's not so much, and I got to be honest with you too, it's not so much just to be like necessarily like strolling. It's really to keep myself like regimented.
Nah, dude, I get it.
It's like, because like I'll tell you right now, like I'm not taking any supplements. Like I drink protein shakes at the end of the workouts so I can recover.
Do you do pre-workout?
But I don't even do pre-workout. Like
wow.
my pre-workout is like I think of a very embarrassing moment in like the 3rd grade that I did, and I just like I fucking just like hammer away whatever, like dumbbells, whatever to it. Like that's it. It's the forbidden pre-workout. So, and so like if I wanted to be a bodybuilder, like sure,
Not even like black coffee or anything?
I'll drink like if I'm going to the gym later in the day and like I'm tired, yeah, of course I'll have black coffee and get myself a little amped up for that. But like at like F45, we had like this one thing called playoffs, which they put in like a circuit of like workouts, and you don't take a break. You just like hammer through the whole thing, and you're like gassed by the end of it.
How long are you at the gym when you get there at 6?
It's like 45 minutes.
Oh, okay.
It's
so 2:45 minutes.
It's 2:45 minutes.
Gotcha.
I'm not the kind of guy that like likes to spend like the people that spend 3 hours at the gym in one go. I'm like, do you have a fucking job or not? Like I don't know who's got the time for that. I'm sorry if you guys do that.
Yeah, no.
By all
The
means.
weekends I'll be longer because.
Well, yeah, it's the weekends.
But yeah, when you don't have to rush out, like rush to be somewhere.
Yeah.
If I like.
But during the week, hell no.
It's like 3 hours at the gym, dude. Come on.
I'll do an hour and a half at the gym.
Fine.
But there are weekends where I'm just like I don't have anything to do. If I'm getting like amped, I have some pre-workout, and like I'll be there for like 2.5 hours.
You'll just stay.
Sometimes. Yeah.
I get it.
If I'm like really really focused, which like is rare because a lot of times with me, and that's kind of like because I like pre-workout or at least black coffee because like if I'm just going in like nothing whatsoever, I'm like I know I'm not going to be focused on working out.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a few friends I have down in Florida now that are like former like spec ops kind of guys, and like their mental drive, I guess what it is, like those guys are like they do all that physical stuff that like the athletes are kind of training themselves to do, except they're trained to do it without having like proper hydration or sleep, which is like day-to-day life.
Scary.
It's scary, and like no one in their right mind would do that in their regular everyday life. But I kind of look at it as like, well, if those guys can like do all that stuff with like 90 pounds of gear on them and like taking gunfire, like I'm like I think like I try to challenge myself. I'm like, go to the gym even if you've only had like 5.5 hours of sleep or 5 hours of sleep, and like
this is something I've been thinking about a lot. So you prioritize the gym over sleep?
I will. Because I think, because you know what it is? It's because, you gotta remember, you too, like I'm down there by myself. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment. Like there's a lot of mental games. The first year when I was down in Florida was very rough for me. It was very, very rough. Everyone thought I was on vacation the whole time.
After COVID, right? Or no, you
during,
were still
during.
Yes, okay.
Yeah. And you gotta remember, like everyone thought when I moved down there that like, oh, like it's like vacation all the time, right? I'm like, no. I'm moving into a place that I don't know a single person. All right. I had a job that was lined up with a very ritzy hotel and it fell through. So I had to like go there and the Breakers, that big hotel in Palm Beach Island that like everyone loves to go to. Like I was supposed to get a sous chef job and it just didn't work out, and it was a week before I was supposed to move down. I did the interviews and everything beforehand.
So you built that up because when I went down to West Palm Beach, we went to a lot of restaurants there. It seemed like everybody knew you.
Yeah, because
and it seemed that was way after.
I mean, yes, but what I'm saying is, it's crazy that you went from that to the two extremes.
Yeah, because I got down there,
we went to that restaurant, like every restaurant we went to, it seemed like the chef in the back knew who Spinosa was.
Yeah, I was like the mayor in town. Yeah. Even Phil said that. He's like, are you the goddamn mayor around here, dude? Like, what's going on? And I didn't know anyone, and like I kind of took that shock as like, all right, cool. We need to do a lot of legwork here if we're gonna like kind of thrive and survive down here. And that's sort of like the whole metaphor that ties into me getting onto the show, like building the private chef business. Like it all started coming together like all at once. It wasn't just like Thanos getting the Infinity Stones one by
energy,
one.
Man.
Yeah,
to be like, it's energy, man.
Yeah.
That's
what equals MC squared, bro.
Here, what you just said about Thanos, I'm thinking now, it's weird that this is like, I'm going back. It's weird that the nerds on Reddit didn't like you, because you made a lot of like nerd references.
I did a Star Wars reference. I put a Metallica song in there as well. Like, what do you want from me, guys?
You mentioned Lord of the Rings. It's weird the nerds didn't like you.
I don't know people.
Yeah.
These are not good people.
These are not good. These are not good people.
These are not good people. We are not talking about decent, hardworking
No.
Americans here.
No.
We're talking about nerds on Reddit.
These are guys fishing popcorn out of their belly button pits.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like,
What else you got for our boy Chris here before I go back to the office?
Well, I want to. Can you talk about the finale?
yeah.
How'd you feel going into it? Were you confident? How do you feel about the cooks that you did? Were you confident? Were you nervous?
So,
Like, how do you?
so going into the finale, like I kind of had this little pep talk with myself because you remember it was like 4.5 weeks of shooting this whole show, and by the end of it, like we were all exhausted. Like we were. Like Pilar and Tucker and myself, like when we were on the coach bus from the hotel to the studio, like we all sat in like separate parts of the bus, not as like a fuck you to the other two. It was just like I need my space. And it was like we got to the studio. They started at like 7 a.m. We didn't get back until like 10:30 at night. It was like it was a long ass day. And so going into it, I was like, you know what, Chris? I was like, look, you made it this far. This is the last day that you're doing this. It's like, I am going to gun for the win, yes, but like make no mistake, I was just happy enough that I was like, we're going to put on a hell of a performance. Oh, yeah. We're going to be funny as hell and also very much going to we're going to take all the risks today. It is going to be nothing.
Damn, that's crazy you thought.
Yeah.
That.
I was like, we're taking every risk.
Well, it's like, okay, you could either you can risk it all, it doesn't work out, and you lose, or play it safe, and there's a time to risk it all. It's the last
first round. Tucker played safe as hell. Everyone
that is true.
Right.
And I was like, damn.
Yeah, they weren't, but you know what it is? Like even like Ramsay, by the time it hit that last cook with the tomahawk, like he went up to me, and the man was like almost annoyed. He's like, young man, he's like, why did you pick the biggest fucking steak on that platform when you only have 30 minutes to cook it?
Was that intentional?
Or was that was absolutely intentional. Like I ran over.
You picked a steak like that.
Saw that tomahawk. I saw that tomahawk because I thought to myself, I was like in that moment, I was like, I haven't cooked a big fucking steak yet. And I know that like there are varieties of cuts of steak that are like, the Mondo burger size steaks, essentially.
Sick reference.
Thank you.
They're filming the second one.
Ah, yes. Fuck yeah.
Is that a good thing?
I mean, no, it's not.
It's really not. It's just, the first one was so,
because, the writer strike.
Are the originals back?
Yeah, no, it's Keenan and
Oh, what? All right, I'm
yeah. Did you not know that?
You just turncoat on that one real quick. I'm all the way in now.
My bad.
So anywho, but like, so I saw that tomahawk and I freaking grabbed that thing and I freaking slapped it on my goddamn cutting board and I was like, that's like, you're going down, baby. And like Ramsay like walked over once he saw all of us grab our stuff and he's just like, Chris. Like almost like, dude, what the fuck? Like he was like, he was annoyed. He like walked off and was just like, this fucking guy. Like he picked the biggest steak possible.
But it's good for you because, and me and you kind of had this conversation after the final episode aired. I remember I said, look, here's what people are going to remember. People are going to remember highlights.
Totally.
Okay? If you're worried about people think that you're the villain of the show or you're too competitive or whatever, I was like, people aren't going to remember that. People remember highlights.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
People remember your highlight reel is what's remembered about you.
Right.
And it's also like, and again, it's just like, being the villain is not a bad thing. It's really not, because look, if Tucker's the protagonist and you're the antagonist, then you're the second most important character. And I'm telling you right now, like, that's what people remember.
And that's exactly what it was.
Yes.
Yeah, I tell everyone, I'm like, are you gonna? I look at people, and I'm like, let me ask you something. I'm like, do you remember more Christian Bale's Batman that he did in The Dark Knight, or do you remember Heath Ledger's Joker?
Or do you remember the Joker?
That's a bar.
Exactly.
Okay, that's a bar.
Yeah,
that's a bar. You remember. You want to be Batman or you want to be the Joker?
And
because the Joker gets to fuck Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
He's also dead.
He's also dead.
Shout out to Heath Ledger.
Shout out to HL, baby.
See you when I see you.
See you when I see you. Yeah, so I felt really good about all the cooks at the end, and I wasn't even crushed when I found out that I wasn't the winner. And honestly, guys, at that point, I was like, "Holy shit, it's over! I get to go back to the hotel and get the fuck out of here."
Yeah, of course.
I was just exhausted at that point, and I was like, "This is gonna be great." I'm like, "I cannot wait to go to sleep on the flight." And then like, I took a whole week off when I got back, phone off. Told my clients I was coming back home a week later.
How long was the time between the finale's over and you're on a plane?
It was the finale. We got back to the hotel like 10:30 at night, and I was on a plane at like 6 a.m.
Okay.
I had like there was no, and even then like I got back, I like like had myself my drinks, and I freaking went and passed out, and like slept for a few hours. Literally took everything out of like the cabinets and the drawers and just freaking threw it in the luggage and zipped it up, and I was like, let's get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
But I do miss it. Like I miss the competition. I miss the competing. So.
Is your goal to? I mean, we briefly talked about this, but like, you see that in the future? You want to go down the Richard Blaze, Gordon Ramsay route?
I would love to, because I think between like my own personality, I know it's definitely a personality that can like be a good fit for TV. People would love that.
Definitely.
And I think even just like with the culinary skills that I showcased, like obviously by no means I'm not like a master chef yet, but like where I am is like a sufficiently good starting point to be at.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
It's only uphill from here, hopefully, as far as like get into that realm of things. The private chef stuff I know I'll be good at, because I'm in a very rich area of Florida, and mind you, like almost the United States, where like I'm gonna have that clientele always.
You could build that up to where you bring other people into your business, and then you keep that going, and then you go shoot.
And then I go shoot, and then before you know it, I am like another Gordon Ramsay type, where like I'm doing TV and I have all my own businesses on the side. So we'll see.
You're looking at the next Gordon
You're
Ramsay,
looking at
folks.
the next Gordon.
All right. Well, thank you for doing this, Chris. We appreciate you coming in.
It's my pleasure to be here.
I appreciate that. As soon as you were on the show, I was just like, we have to get Chris on the podcast.
Totally. And the answer was always gonna be yes.
All right. I forgot how I signed these off. We haven't done one in a while.
Yeah. Also, we're back.
Also, we're back.
We're back.
Also, we're back. We're talking about movies and TV shows and cooking.
There you go.
And some mafia stuff probably
mafia stuff.
soon.
And a little bit of conspiracy with the Epstein in there.
And
that's
conspiracy
that's for the
theories,
hardcore people in the comments.
and some politics stuff which people want us to stay away from.
Yo, shout out to the people who were like,
Yeah.
The other day we got some comments. We posted something about Ben Shapiro, and they were just like, these guys know nothing about economics, but I'm sure they know all the pronouns.
We weren't even like
yo, that's sick.
making a big state. We literally just were like, Ben Shapiro has no cock, and people were coming
we
to
were
his defense.
just saying he has no cock.
Well,
I love
yeah.
how he says that like it's like no. It's like, dude, we just said
like,
he has no.
No,
cock.
We're
we
just speculating here,
gotta
guys.
we gotta make a retraction, because maybe he does have a cock, because he had mad dick riders in the comments.
Oh wow! There you go. There you go.
All right.
Bang bang.
And that's
So it's been the Movies by McManus podcast. Christopher Spinosa, Next Level Chef finalist.
Thank you, boys.
Future Gordon Ramsay. It's a pleasure
the
to have
Italian
you
Gordon
on.
Ramsay.
Yeah.
The Italian Gordon Ramsay. I forgot how we sign these off. Like and subscribe, I think. Check us out on social media at Movies by McManus, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. We're on. I hope to see, and have a good night.